Hi, today we are looking at how to solve signal flow graph with three non-touching loops. So let's get started. To get complete understanding about topic, please watch the complete video till the end. I will cover all the important aspects and rules in between the steps of solution. Here we are considering this simple signal flow graph where G1, G2, H1, H2 all are gains of different part of the graph. Rs is input and Cs is output. Now we will solve it by Mason's gain formula to find out transfer function of whole system. First step is to find out total number of forward paths in the graph. Here, first forward path is passing from G1, G2 and G3. We will name it as P1. So the gain of first forward path P1 is multiplication of all the gains which are coming in the path. Second forward path is passing from G5, G6 and G4. We will name it as P2. The gain of second forward path P2 is multiplication of G5, G6 and G4. Second step is to find total number of single loops. So what is single loop? We can define single loop as a closed path. Here by looking at graph, we can find four single loops. Here is the first loop. We will name it as L1, second loop L2, third loop L3 and fourth loop L4. As we have done for the gain of forward path, we will exactly do the same thing for the gain of single loops. So gain of first single loop is P11. This numbering system is very interesting. I will explain later. So P11 is multiplication of all the gains which are in the loop. Gain of second single loop is P21, gain of third single loop is P31 and gain of fourth single loop is P41. Now see how to number. Let's look at third loop. Here number 1 represents that this is the single loop and number 3 suggests that this is the third loop. Let's look at step number 3, which is to find out total number of two non-touching loops. Non-touching loop means that loops that are not touching each other in any manner. By looking at diagram, loop L1 and L3 are not touching each other. As we have done previously, we will also find the gain of two non-touching loops and name it as P12. Here, 2 means that two non-touching loop and 1 means that this is the first pair of two non-touching loop. So gain of two non-touching loop L1 and L3 will be multiplication of gain of loop L1 and L3. Loop L1 and L4 also not touching each other. So gain of second two non-touching loop is P22 is equal to multiplication of gain of loop L1 and L4. Loop L2 and L4 are also not touching each other. So gain of third two non-touching loop is P32 is equal to multiplication of gain of loop L2 and L4. Loop L3 and L4 are also not touching each other. So gain of fourth two non-touching loop is P42 is equal to multiplication of gain of loop L3 and L4. Now there are no any two non-touching loops. So we will move to next step, which is to find out total number of three non-touching loops. Here by looking at graph, we can find only one group of three non-touching loops, which are of loop L1, L3 and L4. They all do not touch each other. So gain of group of three non-touching loop is P13 is equal to multiplication of gain of loop L1, L3 and L4. Here there is no other group of 4 non-touching loop or 5 non-touching loop. Otherwise we will treat those groups as we have done for others. Step number 5 is to find out value of delta 1 and delta 2. What is delta 1 and delta 2? We can generalize this concept as delta n is equal to 1 minus sum of gain of loops not touching to n forward path. In this case, delta 1 is nothing but 1 minus sum of gain of loops not touching to first forward path. This is the first forward path. Here loop L1, L2 and L3 all are touching to this first forward path, but this loop L4 is not touching to first forward path. So delta 1 will be 1 minus sum of gain of loop L4. Delta 2 will be 1 minus sum of gain of loops that are not touching to second forward path. Here loop L2 and L3 are not touching to this second forward path. This group is touching here at this point to this second forward path, but these two loops do not touch to this second forward path. So delta 2 will be 1 minus sum of gain of loop L2 and L3. Step number 6 is to find out value of delta. So what is delta? Delta is equal to 1 minus sum of gain of all single loops plus sum of gain of all two non-touching loops minus sum of gain of all three non-touching loops. So just by putting all values which we have derived earlier, we can find our delta. Last step is to obtain transfer function. So transfer function is equal to P1 delta 1 plus P2 delta 2 divided by delta. We have derived all the values earlier. So just by putting those values, we can find our transfer function. I hope that you have cleared all your doubts about this topic. If you liked my work, then press like button. Don't forget to share it with your friends. If you want to see more videos like this in future, then subscribe to this channel and check out my channel for more videos like this. So this is it for now. We will meet in my next video.